Audiobook Successful Management Styles of India, Volume 1, Chapter 7.2 Transparency is the Problem. Having covered in Chapter 7.1 how I met Gordon and joined a business house in India. Continues. Now, HR executive Mr. Verma started negotiating with me. His first complaint was, how can Gordon appreciate you in your presence? What he meant was, how can Gordon be transparent? I concurred and said, yes, you are right. How can he be so transparent? Verma continued his complaint against Gordon. His concern was that I might demand higher salary. I started my role, a benevolent leader, which is very popular in India, said, you may offer what you can afford. But after reaching India, if I come to know that offer is not comparable to the best, I may have to reconsider my decision to join. Mr. Verma knew I was serious. Gordon did not understand the discussions. I had to explain to him, it is not customary in India to accept subordinates' capabilities and praise him in his presence. Nor staff expect a praise from the boss, lest they may mistake it for consent for a raise in salary. Same way, employees do not want to be accountable for their mistakes. It is like taking a signed document absolving a doctor before a life-threatening operation. This sums up the transparency problem in India. Gordon was used to hire and fire and did not understand this a bit. If somebody is good, we will hire him. If he is not performing well, we will fire him, was his policy. I explained to Gordon, it doesn't work in India. Once you hire a person, especially a senior person, you are stuck with him, and firing him will create ripples in the staff and create insecurity among them. So Indian employers are cautious in hiring and delay the decision to fire. After successful negotiation, I left the boy. Thus my relation with Indian family-run business started. I returned to India this time to a different company where management was Indian family but wanted to implement the American management policies. Earlier, when I left India about 20 years back, it was an American company, oil company, where the government wanted to transform it into an Indian company, which was explained in Chapter 5. This Indian business house hired an HR chief from a world famous American company. I thought it was a soft drink company. And he was head of the human resource group. Later I came to know Star Oil, of course the name changed, was part of one of the biggest groups of companies of India doing various business ranging from shipping to real estate. End of chapter 7.2. 7.3 Attracting talent and rewarding loyalty. Unlike the public sector companies where they have a policy saying gates are open if you are not happy with that company, business houses in India, especially large ones, they tried to recognize the talent and rewarding the loyalty. The family-run business house knew they have to pay better salaries than public sector to attract talent and retain them. One point, both public sector unit staff and foreign investors have to know that private family-owned companies value loyalty to the owners more than the talent of the staff. Job security is lower in the private sector than in public sector, and yet very high compared to rest of the world. Most of the Indians like to work in secure environment, and those employers who provide job security enjoy the loyalty of employees. Thus, private sector had a better chance and zeal to retain and reward employees. Thus, brain drain observed in public sector companies is not reflected in well-established private companies. In fact, these private houses, they scout for best talented employees in public sector undertaking, and even in fact sometimes they have an access to their confidential reports, and thus they fish the best from the other companies. In fact, companies like Tata's, there are employees with 3 to 4 generations in the service of Tata companies like Tata Steel. I met a person in Jamshedpur who for last 3 generations they are working in Tata Steels. Though majority of private sector is a low paymaster than public sector, few like in oil and IT sectors were pioneers in retaining and rewarding talent, and this star company is one among them. By retaining and rewarding talented employees, private sector had a better chance to implement succession plan than public sector undertakings. Thus, continuity of operation, implementation of strategy were achieved by successful leadership. At the end of 7.3, and we will compare later how the project group and operating group both had a contrasting styles of succession plans. One had a better succession plan which helped the company, and whereas the other one did not have a succession plan and which had to be wound up, which we will discuss in 7.5. Before we close this audio session, we'll discuss 7.4, the growth of the family run business. When we look at growth of star group of companies, a small construction company started in South India few decades back with meager investment of around 500 crores, reached the US dollar 400 billion revenue in less than 2 decades. That speaks volume of the growth of family business, especially Star Oil in India. Star had several lines of business such as project management, oil refining, real estate, IT, shipping and steel, and one of the top 10 companies in India, owing its growth to the economic reforms started in India in 1991, and the enterprise skills of some of the business houses who are having their presence all over the world. Star is a real star among business houses as they chose Tata's as their role model, which is benevolent to the employees and compliance of all the rules set forward by the government. However, some of the companies like Star Steel had a high liabilities. Another aspect which is an accepted norm in India is to entrust their projects to some sister concerns of their groups. This, coupled with the liberal loan policy of federal government and flexible share market in India, benefited innovative finance and cash policies of the family groups. That is one of the reasons why few family houses grew very fast. We were in a strange situation where our client and owner of the project and the executor of the project are from the same group of companies. There is a confusion for me initially, as I did not know who was the owner and who was the client. Some groups had different management styles based on their CEOs and their background. Few CEOs were hired from public sector, few from private, and some from foreign multinationals. In our project group, majority worked abroad, and I could see the difference in management styles, and thus became subject for my book. What kept Star Oil apart from other companies is that they believed in best management practices while keeping Indian traditions intact. As oil business involves a lot of capital, huge cash flow and infrastructure building, Star kept tight financial control. Those companies who did not have fiscal discipline, who entered petroleum refining earlier, had to close their business. One of them had to sell it to public sector. Of course, it's a joint venture which did not have freedom or nor resources, leave alone management and leadership for pulling the economic miracles which others achieved almost a decade later. Thus, we close this audiobook today, and we will discuss about 7.5, the project management and operating company and empowerment, etc. in the next section. Signing off, author Rajsekhar Pola Pragada.